2025. National Museum of the Marine Corps, Quantico, Virginia. An old man stands before a glass case in the World War II Pacific Gallery. 76 years old, shoulders still broad despite age, hands gnarled from decades working timber. Inside the case, a Springfield M1903A4 sniper rifle, and wrapped around the telescopic sight, a cylinder of corroded aluminium covered in faded canvas. Parachute cord wound in spiral pattern. The placard reads, "Field Expedient Scope Modification. Common late 1944. No name." A young couple glances at the rifle, moves on within seconds. 30,000 visitors pass this exhibit every year. Most don't pause. The old man reaches out. Fingertips nearly touch the glass. A museum volunteer approaches. "Can I help you find something, sir?" The old man's voice is quiet. Montana accent still there after 50 years. Just remembering. "Did you serve?" "Long time ago." The kid waits, sensing more. But the old man shakes his head, turns away, walks slowly toward the exit. Behind him, the rifle remains, silent, waiting. And in his mind, he is no longer 76. He is 19, and the jungle is trying to kill him. November 18th, 1943. 03:47 hours. Bougainville Island, Solomon Islands. Rain hammers through triple canopy jungle like 1,000 drums. 60 feet below Corporal Thomas Reed's position, the forest floor has become black soup. Reed lies absolutely still. A crude platform of lashed branches wedged into a strangler fig. Water streams down his face, pools in his poncho, drips from his Springfield rifle barrel. He has been here 11 hours without moving more than his eyes. Through his scope, he watches shadows materialize from the tree line, 400 yards distant. Japanese scouts, 5 of them, tactical spacing, moving toward the American perimeter where 2nd Platoon holds 100 yards with 32 men. Reed shifts his cheek against the stock, feels familiar panic rising. His scope lens is fogging. In 40 seconds, those scouts will spot the gap in the wire. But this time, something is different. This time, Reed has a crushed Coca-Cola can wrapped around his scope, held with canvas strips and parachute cord. Looks absurd, like something a child would improvise. It is about to change everything. March 1942, 3 months after Pearl Harbor. Thomas Reed enlisted in Great Falls, Montana. Listed occupation, timber faller. Shooting experience, hunting. The recruiter, Sergeant Kowalski from Belleau Wood, spotted something in the quiet 19-year-old's application. "You ever shoot competitively?" "No, sir." "You ever miss?" Reed thought carefully. His father taught him words mattered. "Sometimes when I'm rushing." Kowalski smiled, not warmly, the smile of confirmed suspicion. "Don't rush." Born in Timber Ridge, Montana in 1922, Tom Reed grew up where the nearest stoplight was 43 miles away. His father William ran a small sawmill, 11 employees, enough board feet to keep the family fed, but never comfortable. Tom learned to shoot by necessity, not choice. Deer meat filled the freezer, coyotes threatened chickens, shooting was infrastructure. The boy could hit a pine cone at 200 yards by 12, William Reed later told Stars and Stripes. But he never bragged, just did what needed doing. That was the Montana way. Don't talk, just do. Boot camp revealed what humility had concealed. Camp Matthews Rifle Range, 238 out of 250. Expert qualification. Missed only 12 points over the entire course. His shooting wasn't fast or flashy, but consistent, almost mechanical precision. Staff Sergeant Raymond Torres had trained hundreds. He pulled Reed aside after qualification. "Reed, you're going to sniper school." "Not a question." "I just want to do my part, Staff Sergeant." Torres looked at the tall, lean kid. Steady hands, calm eyes.
Your part is putting rounds exactly where they need to be when your brothers' lives depend on it. That's your part.
Sniper school at Jack's farm lasted 6 weeks. Captain Marcus Webb, 40 years old, Guadalcanal veteran, taught them to think like hunters, not soldiers. Patient, invisible, certain before the shot. Webb emphasized psychology. A sniper isn't measured by kills, he's measured by disruption. One well-placed round stops a company for hours. You're not infantry, you're chaos agents. Reed finished second in class, first in fieldcraft, second in marksmanship behind California shooter Eddie Salzman, who excelled on known ranges but struggled in field conditions. Webb's assessment: Salzman will win you trophies, Reed will win you battles. Reed drew 3rd Marine Division, September 1943. USS. President Adams cut through Pacific swells. 19 days to Bougainville. Reed maintained his weapon, Springfield M1903A4, with M73B1 Weaver, 2.5 times scope. Broke it down, cleaned every component, built muscle memory in darkness, and studied intelligence briefings. Triple canopy jungle, constant rain, minimal sightlines. 12,000 Japanese troops dug in. "This ain't the range at Jacques Farm," said Corporal Tiago Delgado. El Paso, former border patrol. Loud, confident, skeptical of the quiet Montana kid. "Never thought it would be," Reed replied. 6 snipers in their unit. Reed, Tiago, Elliot Branson from San Francisco, Fitzgerald, Kowalski, Williams. They would need every one. November 1st, 1943, Cape Torokina, Bougainville. The 3rd Marine Division hit beaches at 0730 hours. Lighter resistance than expected. Japanese had withdrawn inland to jungle defensive positions. Within 72 hours, aggressive probing attacks began. The terrain was worse than intelligence warned. Visibility beyond 50 yards, nearly impossible. Jungle like a green wall. Trees 200 feet. Undergrowth hiding battalions. Rain came in torrential sheets, turned foxholes to swimming pools, made radio communication sporadic. And for snipers, the moisture was catastrophic. Reed discovered the problem within 24 hours. Observation post overlooking suspected enemy route. Settled into hide at 0800. Adjusted rifle. Brought scope to eye. Saw nothing but white fog. Completely misted over. He wiped the glass. Brought scope back. Clear for 3 seconds. Then fog rolled back like tide, erasing the image. Body heat plus 95% humidity plus temperature differential created condensation that rendered the optic useless. He could wipe it clear. Within seconds, it fogged again. At 1420 hours, Japanese patrol passed within 200 yards. Reed could see them with naked eye. Dark shapes in undergrowth. 7 men. Mapping American positions. Through his scope, ghosts. Useless. He did not fire. Could not fire. He was blind. That evening, all 6 snipers reported the same problem. Captain Webb listened grimly. He'd fought Guadalcanal, knew what they faced. "I've requisitioned anti-fog treatments, should arrive with next supply, maybe a week." Tiago's voice was bitter. "We don't have a week, sir." The numbers told the story. 6 trained snipers, 7 days, 12 total shots fired, dozens of enemy patrols observed but not engaged. Specialists without specialty. Expensive training wasted by environmental conditions nobody prepared for. Elliot spoke up. "Japanese don't seem to have this problem. Their scopes are simpler, less glass." "Their scopes are also less accurate," Webb replied. "If we could keep ours clear, we'd outshoot them 2-1. "If doesn't win battles, sir." Webb had no answer. For a week, Reed went through motions, took position every morning, watched through naked eyes or occasional scope moments when it wasn't completely fogged. Logged movements, provided intelligence, but did not engage. November 8th. Japanese mortar team set up 600 yards from Reed's position. He watched through naked eye. called in counter-battery coordinates, but his own shot was impossible, scope useless. 600 yards with iron sights was a gamble he wouldn't take. Miss and give away position, get killed, accomplish nothing. That night he cleaned his rifle with methodical precision, but knew better. The M73B1 scope was excellent equipment. In temperate climate, one of the finest optical sights in the world. Here, it was a paperweight. November 14th, 1943. Evening briefing. Major Caldwell stood before a map marked with red symbols. Japanese positions, movement patterns, estimated strength. Intelligence indicates enemy is preparing major counterattack. They've been systematically probing our perimeter for 2 weeks, mapping weak points. He tapped the map. Southern approach. This valley provides covered access. Second platoon holds 100 yards with 32 men.
If Japanese hit there in strength, we have a problem. Webb asked the question.
When? Within 72 hours, possibly tomorrow night. Reed felt something cold settle in his stomach. Southern approach was his sector. He'd watched it 2 weeks. Every patrol, every trail, every piece of cover. And for 2 weeks, unable to engage effectively because his scope was blind. He thought about 2nd Platoon Marines, knew some names, Jackson from Iowa, Morales from Texas. A kid named Chen, who looked 16, came over on the same ship. If Japanese hit that sector and snipers couldn't provide overwatch, those men would die. That night, Reed could not sleep. He lay in his shelter, listening to rain hammer canvas. Around him, Marines snored, exhausted beyond caring. But Reed's mind wouldn't stop. The problem turned over and over. Scope fogged because warm, moist air contacted cold glass. Solution: eliminate moisture, warm glass, or prevent air from reaching it.
Couldn't control humidity, that was the jungle. Couldn't heat glass without giving away position. But maybe he could block the air.
Reed sat up, reached for his pack, pulled out C-ration box. Inside, crackers, cheese, candy, and a can of Coca-Cola. He held the can to dim light. Aluminium cylinder about 3 inches long, 2 inches diameter. His scope was 1.8 inches diameter. Close enough. Reed turned the can in his hands, measuring mentally, thinking through physics, engineering. It might work. His father's voice echoed. Don't wait for the perfect tool. Use what you've got. A good craftsman doesn't complain about a dull saw, he sharpens it. Reed looked at the Coca-Cola can, then his rifle, back to the can. An idea. Crazy, desperate, possibly brilliant. It would mean violating regulations, modifying precision equipment without authorization, grounds for court-martial. But the alternative was watching Marines die because he couldn't see. Reed made his decision.
Tomorrow morning, he would build something never built before. Turn a 10-cent soda can into military equipment. If it worked, he'd change the war. If not, he'd face consequences. Either way, he was done being blind. November 15th, 1943. 05:30 hours. Reed woke before first light. The body learns rhythms in war. He moved quietly. Around him, Marines slept. One kid from Kentucky cried softly in dreams every night. No one mentioned it. Reed gathered materials. Coca-Cola can, combat knife, P-38 can opener from C-rations, canvas section from damaged shelter half, parachute cord from an airdrop, and his rifle. The Springfield that had been useless for 2 weeks. He worked by single candle, shielded so flame wouldn't be visible outside. The P-38 can opener was tiny, maybe 1.5 inches, small blade and fulcrum, designed to open canned rations, not precision metalwork. Reed inserted blade into can's top rim, applied pressure. Aluminum was thin, softer than expected. Blade punched through like tearing paper. He worked slowly, rotating the can, keeping the cut straight, hands steady despite cold, despite knowledge this could end his career. 5 minutes to cut the top free. Started on bottom. Second cut went faster. He understood the metal now. When both ends removed,
He held up the result. Cylinder of aluminum, 3 inches long, 2 inches diameter, interior still wet with residual Coca-Cola. Sweet smell strange in jungle darkness. Reed wiped the can dry. Then came critical cut, longitudinal, top to bottom, turning cylinder into C-shape that could wrap around scope. Measured twice, marked with knife tip, light scratch in soft metal. This was hardest part. Can wanted to collapse under pressure, crumple instead of part cleanly. He had to support with left hand while cutting with right, just enough force to penetrate without deforming. His father taught this patience in the sawmill, when cutting delicate pieces, when wood grain ran wrong, and one false move ruined hours. Don't rush, don't force, let the tool work. The cut took 10 minutes. When finished, he had C-shaped aluminium sleeve, springy, flexible enough to open and close, strong enough to hold shape. He brought it to his rifle, held against scope. Fit was nearly perfect, but fitting wasn't enough. Real challenge was finding right position, right angle, right distance from eye. Reed experimented. First attempt, mounting directly against scope. When he shouldered rifle and looked through, can's edge intruded into field of view. Dark crescent eating the image. Useless. Adjusted. Moved can forward ½ inch. Better. But now his breath hit back of can and channeled directly onto lens, defeating entire purpose. Tried mounting high. Created shadow across lower lens half. Also useless. 20 minutes of experimentation. Hands getting cold. Candle burning down. Soon other Marines would wake, would see what he was doing. He couldn't afford questions. Reed forced methodical thinking. The problem was geometry. Can had to protect scope from moisture, but couldn't intrude into sight picture, couldn't channel breath onto lens, couldn't create shadows. There had to be a position satisfying all requirements. He tried mounting offset, left side of scope, angled 45 degrees, brought rifle to shoulder, pressed eye to scope. Field of view was clear, no obstruction. He exhaled slowly toward scope. Breath missed lens entirely. Can's hood channeled it away, and can extended roughly 2 inches past front of scope lens, creating natural sunshade, rain guard. This was it. But aluminum cylinder wouldn't stay in position, kept slipping, rotating. One bump would shift it out of alignment. Reed needed to secure it permanently. He retrieved canvas strips, cut to length, wrapped first strip around aluminum can. Fabric covered reflective metal, turned bright silver into dull grey-green, blending with jungle shadows. Wrapped tight, overlapping each layer, building thickness. Then parachute cord, wound in spiral pattern over canvas. Each wrap pulled tight, secured with half hitches every 2 inches. Assembly was growing, getting bulkier, adding weight to rifle's front. Webb's words echoed. You're adding 3 ounces to the front end. 3 ounces would change balance, how it handled, how it pointed. But 3 ounces was nothing compared to a scope that couldn't see. Reed worked another 15 minutes, wrapping, securing, testing. Twice assembly slipped loose, canvas unwinding, cord going slack. Twice he started over, fingers cramping, cold seeping through. Outside, Marines beginning to stir. He was running out of time. Third attempt, he changed technique, pre-tensioned each wrap, pulled tight before adding next layer, built pressure gradually. When he added parachute cord this time, it bit into canvas, compressed it, created friction locking everything in place. He tugged, it held, tugged harder, solid, lifted rifle, moved through shooting positions, checking for shift. The improvised scope guard stayed locked. Reed held his rifle to candlelight. Result looked crude, unprofessional, like something desperate man built in darkness with inadequate tools, which was exactly what it was. But examining more carefully, he realized the modification created something beyond initial intention. Aluminum can provided dead airspace around scope, 2 to 3 millimeters, just enough to disrupt thermal gradient, causing condensation. Canvas wrapping eliminated light reflection, actually improved concealment. Extended hood, shaded front lens, would prevent rain hitting glass directly, reduce glare. and parachute cord created textured surface, wouldn't snag on vegetation like smooth metal. He'd set out to solve one problem, accidentally created system addressing four.
Reed allowed himself a small smile. First in 2 weeks. His father would approve. That's good craftsmanship, solving problems you didn't know you had. 40 hours. Captain Webb was at command post, reviewing maps by Coleman lantern. His face looked older than 40. Jungle aged everyone fast. Reed approached, rifle in hand. Webb looked up, saw the modification. Eyebrows rose. "Corporal Reed, what am I looking at?" "Request permission to field test a scope modification, sir." Webb walked around Reed, examining rifle from different angles. "That's a Coca-Cola can." "Yes, sir." "Wrapped in canvas and parachute cord." "Yes, sir." Webb touched the assembly, tested stability. "You modified precision sniper equipment without authorization." Statement of fact. "Yes, sir, I did." "That's court-martial offense, Corporal." "I understand, sir." Webb continued examination. Professional, thorough. "Walk me through it. How does this solve fogging?" Reed explained. Dead airspace, thermal disruption, rain shield, technical, factual, no excuses. When finished, Webb was quiet. Then, "Weight balance is off. You added 3 ounces to front end." "Yes, sir, I'll compensate when aiming." "If it snags on vegetation?" "Canvas is smooth enough, sir. I tested movement through underbrush, no worse than standard setup." "Does it work?" "Haven't tested under field conditions yet, sir. But theory is sound. We use something similar on chainsaw carburetors back home. Prevents moisture in fuel line." Webb looked at Reed, measuring something beyond the rifle. "You want to take this to your hide today?" "Yes, sir. Japanese scouts probe southern perimeter every afternoon between 1400 and 1600 hours. If this works, I can interdict them before they map our weak points." "And if it doesn't work?" "Then I'm no worse off than yesterday, sir." Webb handed the rifle back. "Approved for field testing. Report results tonight." "Thank you, sir." Reed turned to leave. "Corporal." "Sir? Don't get yourself killed testing a theory." "No, sir." By 0800 hours, Reed was back in his hide. The Strangler Fig, 63 feet above valley floor. Same platform he'd occupied for a week, refined over days. Better camouflage, improved shooting lanes, range markers using distinctive trees and rocks below. Excellent sniper position. The only thing missing had been functioning optic. Reed settled into position, arranged gear, made sure nothing reflected light or created unnatural shapes, then brought modified rifle to shoulder, pressed eye to scope, and saw the valley below with perfect clarity. No fog, no haze, no condensation. Just clean, magnified vision stretching 400 yards to tree line. For first time in 2 weeks, Thomas Reed could see. He spent next hour testing the system, swept scope across different target areas, checking for distortion or obstruction. Found none. Deliberately exhaled towards scope, testing whether breath would fog lens. It didn't. Extended hood channeled breath away, watched rain fall steadily 30 minutes, checking whether moisture would accumulate. Lens remained clear, hood doing its job. Practiced shooting positions, making small adjustments for altered weight distribution. 3 ounces wasn't much, but at extended range, even small changes affected accuracy. By 1000 hours, he'd adapted. Rifle felt natural again. Extension of body rather than tool he was operating. By noon, confident. By 1300 hours, ready. November 16th, 1943. 1347 hours. 24 hours after fabricating the modification, Reed was about to test it under fire. The Japanese patrol materialized from tree line right on schedule. 7 soldiers, tactical column, spacing roughly 15 yards apart, following game trail parallel to American perimeter. Through his modified scope, Reed could see details impossible for 2 weeks. Lead Scout's rifle barrel catching filtered sunlight. Map case on officer's belt. Water dripping from helmets. Fabric of uniforms dark with rain and sweat. Every detail sharp, clear,
Magnified 2.5 times, Reed settled breathing, felt heart rate slow. Rifle sat solid in improvised rest, finger found trigger. Taking first stage slack. Range, 420 yards. Wind, negligible in sheltered valley, maybe 2 miles per hour from east. Elevation, 63 feet above valley floor, requiring slight low aim to compensate for downward angle. He'd calculated all this days ago, memorized holdovers for every range marker in his sector. Only variable that changed was his ability to see. Lead scout paused at trail bend, raised hand, signal to halt, column stopped, maintaining spacing, weapons ready. Good discipline. They were directly below distinctive dead tree, Reed marked as range marker 3. He'd laser-focused on this exact spot. Knowing enemy patrols favored this route. Reed had been waiting. Now he could finally engage. He placed crosshairs on lead scout's center mass. Man stood still, completely unaware he was observed. Confident jungle concealed him. Reed elevated slightly, accounting for 420 yards and downward angle. Crosshairs settled, rock steady. Breathing stopped in natural pause. Heart beat slow and strong, 48 beats per minute. Through the scope, sharp and unobstructed. Just perfect optical clarity. Finger increased pressure on trigger. 2 pounds. 3. 4. The Springfield cracked. Sound echoed through valley like tree branch snapping, absorbed quickly by vegetation. Through scope, Reed watched round impact. Lead scout's body jerked, driven backward by 150-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second. Man collapsed without sound. Other 6 Japanese soldiers scattered immediately, diving for cover, their tactical discipline evident in how quickly they disappeared. These were veterans. Reed worked bolt, chambering fresh round, movement smooth, practiced, no wasted motion. He didn't chase targets, amateur work, instead watched undergrowth, looking for movement, slight disturbance of leaves indicating where scouts had gone to ground. 30 seconds passed. Then he saw it. Soldier rising from cover 50 yards behind where lead scout fell. Attempting to move to better position. Probably thought he was invisible in jungle shadows. He wasn't. Reed's second shot caught him mid-step. Soldier went down hard, crashed through undergrowth, made more noise falling than first man. Patrol broke. Remaining 5 soldiers abandoned tactical movement and ran, sprinting back toward tree line, clearly spooked by enemy they couldn't locate. Reed tracked them through scope, watching retreat, noting exit route, speed of withdrawal. He didn't fire again. 2 shots were enough. Webb's words echoed, "Sniper isn't measured by kills, he's measured by disruption." That patrol wouldn't return, and importantly, they'd report to commanders that southern approach was compromised. That American sniper had route covered. Any movement through valley would be observed and engaged. Mission accomplished. Reed safed rifle, settled back into hide. For first time in 2 weeks, he'd done his job. Actually performed the role he'd trained for. Used skills to protect Marines holding line below. He examined scope. Still clear. No fogging despite sustained rain. Soda can modification worked. Through canvas and parachute cord and 10-cent aluminum can, Thomas Reed had turned himself from useless observer into effective weapon. He stayed in position until 1800 hours, watching sector, logging movement. Japanese didn't send another patrol through that valley. They'd learned. 1830 hours, command post. Captain Webb was waiting. Major Caldwell stood beside him. 2 confirmed kills, Reed reported. Japanese reconnaissance patrol, 7 men. They were mapping approach routes to 2nd Platoon's position. Webb's voice careful. Scope modification worked? Yes, sir. Perfect clarity. No fogging. Completely unobstructed view for entire 5-hour watch. Caldwell leaned forward. Corporal, I need you to understand something. We've tracked Japanese patrol patterns 2 weeks. They've systematically probed our southern perimeter every day. You just shut down their primary reconnaissance route. That's not just 2 kills, that's operational impact. Yes, sir. Webb examined modified scope again, this time with more interest. Attention of man who recognized something significant had happened. How long did fabrication take? 20 minutes, sir. Materials on hand. Ration can, canvas, cordage. Can you make 5 more? Reed thought about the process. If other snipers help with fabrication, we could have all 6 rifles modified by tomorrow morning, sir. Webb's order was immediate. Make it happen.
Tiago, Elliott, Fitzgerald, Williams, Kowalski all need these modifications. I want every sniper in this sector operational by first light.
Yes, sir. And Reed, good work. That night, Reed taught the other 5 snipers how to build scope guards from soda cans. Elliott Branson caught on immediately. Engineer's mind. Understood physics instantly. Made suggestions for improvements. Fitzgerald and Williams were methodical, followed instructions exactly, produced clean work. Kowalski struggled with fine motor control, kept crushing can. Reed worked with him patiently, showed how to support metal while cutting. And Tiago Delgado stood back, arms crossed, watching, skeptical. You want me to wrap my scope in garbage? Reed's voice even. I want you to be able to see through your scope. Choice is yours. Tiago looked at crude modification, then at his own rifle with useless, fogged optic. This really works. Worked for me. 2 kills at 420 yards through rain.
Perfect visibility. Other snipers were already cutting cans, already wrapping canvas, already believing. Tiago picked up Coca-Cola can from ration box. Show me again how you cut the bottom. But his voice carried doubt, his movements reluctant. He was complying with Webb's order, not because he believed. By midnight, all 6 sniper rifles had been modified, but not all with equal care. November 17th, 1943. 09:45 hours. Japanese counterattack began, not with artillery or banzai charge, but with something more sophisticated, more dangerous. Probing attack designed to identify weak points. Multiple squads hitting different sections simultaneously, attempting to draw forces away, create gaps for follow-on forces. Intelligence predicted this, but prediction and preparation were different things. Southern approach received special attention. At 10:15 hours, platoon strength force of approximately 35 Japanese soldiers began moving through valley. Using fire and maneuver tactics, they were confident, organized, expected minimal resistance from jungle-covered approach. They were wrong. But not all 6 snipers were ready. Tiago Delgado had modified his scope the night before, but reluctantly, skeptically, without care Reed had taken. His canvas wrapping was loose, parachute cord uneven, aluminum can not quite centered. At 9:30 hours, positioned on western approach, Tiago watched Japanese mortar team emerge from jungle. 6 men, carrying Type 89 grenade discharger, setting up in clearing 200 yards from his position. Perfect target, perfect range. He brought rifle up, pressed eye to scope, and saw nothing but fog. The modification had failed, or more accurately, Tiago's half-hearted implementation had failed. He watched helplessly as mortar team established position, began ranging shots, preparing to rain death on marine positions. Tiago tried wiping lens, tried adjusting can. Nothing worked. Couldn't engage with iron sights at 200 yards. Risk of missing too high. Would give away position. Accomplished nothing. Mortar team completed setup and withdrew into jungle, leaving weapon in place for later use. Tiago returned to base at noon, faced dark with frustration and shame. He found Reed cleaning rifle after the morning engagement. "Montana boy." Tiago's voice was quiet, different from his usual confident tone. "I need your help." Reed looked up. "My modification didn't work. I didn't do it right. Didn't think it mattered. I was wrong." Reed set down cleaning rod. "Show me what you did." They spent an hour rebuilding Tiago's scope guard, this time properly, with care, with precision. Reed explained each step, why it mattered, why the angle had to be exact, why the canvas had to be tight. When they finished,
Tiago tested it, looked through scope. Crystal clear. He lowered the rifle, looked at Reed. "I'm sorry. You were right. I should have listened."
Reed's voice was even. "It's not about being right. It's about keeping each other alive." By 1400 hours, Tiago was back in position, with a scope that worked. Meanwhile, Reed was in position by 1000 hours, his hide refined even further, shooting lanes clear, range cards updated. Through his modified scope, still clear despite steady rain, he watched Japanese force organize at treeline, counted soldiers, identified leaders by behavior, noted weapons, equipment. When they began advance, he was ready. His first shot came at 10:18 hours. NCO directing 2 squads' movement, 40 yards ahead of main body, using hand signals to coordinate. Range, 380 yards. Reed placed crosshairs on man's chest, elevated for distance, accounted for minimal wind. Springfield cracked. Through scope, NCO went down. 2 squads immediately went to ground, surprised by accurate fire from unseen position. They'd expected rain and vegetation to protect them. Same conditions that protected patrols for 2 weeks. It hadn't. Reed worked with careful control, firing once every 2 to 3 minutes, targeting soldiers who exposed themselves, attempting to maneuver. Didn't rush. Didn't waste ammunition. Each shot executed with practiced certainty of someone who'd spent thousands of hours on ranges and in mountain camps. 10:23 hours. Second shot. Soldier attempting left flank through dense undergrowth. Thought vegetation concealed him. It didn't. Down. 10:31 hours. Third shot. Officer rallying men, trying to restore order to disrupted formation. Down. 10:38 hours. Fourth shot. Soldier carrying radio. Communication was critical in coordinated attacks. Down. By 11:45 hours, Reed had fired 14 rounds and recorded 9 confirmed hits. But numbers didn't tell real story. Real story was Japanese advance had stalled completely. Soldiers pinned in place, unable to identify fire source, unable to return effective fire, unable to advance without exposing themselves. At 12:30 hours, Japanese force withdrew. Reed wasn't alone. Throughout morning, other 5 snipers, now equipped with modified scopes, reported similar results. Elliot Branson, covering northern sector, had disrupted flanking movement by engaging lead elements. Entire formation fell back in confusion. Fitzgerald had engaged a supply column, attempting to move forward, forced them to abandon equipment and retreat, and Tiago Delgado, back in position with properly functioning scope, had finally engaged that mortar team. He'd waited for them to return to their weapon. When they did, he was ready. 3 crew members killed, mortar abandoned, position neutralized. When Tiago returned that evening, he found Reed at command post. "It worked," Tiago said simply. "Montana boy, you were right. Thank you." Reed just nodded. "Glad you made it back." That afternoon, Webb assembled sniper team for debrief. Numbers were staggering. Combined, 6 snipers had fired 62 rounds and recorded 41 confirmed hits during morning engagement. Japanese probing attack, predicted to last all day and potentially break through in multiple locations, had been stopped cold within 3 hours. Caldwell addressed tired snipers. "Gentlemen, you just saved 2nd Platoon from getting overrun. Japanese were setting up for coordinated assault on our weakest positions. You broke their reconnaissance, disrupted their attack formations, forced them to abort. That's not just good shooting, that's operational impact at battalion level." Reed said nothing, cleaned rifle in corner, but noticed Elliot looking at him with new respect. "The soda can modification works," Elliot said quietly. Reed's voice soft. "It's just solving problems with what you have available." November 18th, 1943. 0300 hours. Marine listening posts reported hearing movement, lots of movement, coordinated and disciplined. Japanese forces staging for major nighttime assault, using weather as concealment, planning to hit American perimeter at weakest points before dawn. Webb made controversial decision to deploy snipers during darkness, positioned them with night observation devices, instructions to interdict any enemy formations they could locate. Dangerous work, moving through jungle at night, establishing positions without light, maintaining awareness while exhausted, but necessary. Reed reached Hyde at 3:15, moving through darkness using memorized terrain features. Modified scope useless in darkness. But he brought M2 infrared binoculars. He settled and waited. At 3:47 hours, he spotted them. Japanese assault force moving through valley, larger than any previous patrol, moving with confidence of soldiers believing they were unseen. Through infrared binoculars, Reed counted at least 80 men in main body, scouts ranging ahead. This wasn't reconnaissance. This was preparation for assault. Couldn't engage with infrared binoculars. Those were observation only. Needed visible light for scope. But as he watched, weather provided unexpected gift. Rain began easing. Sky to east started lightening with approaching dawn. Not much, just enough. By 4:10 hours, sufficient ambient light for Reed to transition from infrared binoculars to modified scope. Japanese force now 300 yards out and closing. Column formation, clearly planning to deploy into assault lines once they reached jumping-off point. Reed made command decision. Rather than engaging scouts or main body, he'd target officers and NCOs in middle of formation, leaders who would coordinate assault. First shot at 4:12 hours, dropped captain consulting map with 2 subordinates. Second shot, 30 seconds later, killed one of those subordinates. Third shot forced formation to scatter, soldiers diving for cover, cohesion dissolving into confusion. Over the next 90 minutes, as dawn light gradually increased, Reed maintained sustained fire into Japanese formation. Didn't try to kill everyone. One man with one rifle against 80, impossible, but systematically eliminated anyone who tried to rally scattered soldiers, anyone attempting to establish command post, anyone organizing coherent assault. Other snipers, hearing Reed's sustained fire and recognizing main assault was hitting southern sector, shifted positions to provide supporting fires. By 5:30 hours, 3 snipers were engaging same target area from different angles, creating crossfire, making it impossible for Japanese to maneuver without exposing themselves. Mathematics were brutal, simple, perfect. Every time Japanese soldier moved, he entered at least one sniper's field of fire. Every attempt to advance met with accurate fire from unseen enemy. Every attempt to organize was disrupted. Japanese assault never materialized. By 6:45 hours, as full daylight arrived, enemy force had withdrawn completely, leaving equipment, wounded, any hope of achieving surprise. Marine patrols later counted 23 Japanese dead, most killed by sniper fire. Evidence suggested many more wounded and evacuated. In his personal log, Reed recorded 19 shots fired, 12 confirmed kills and unknown number wounded. Combined with previous 2 days, 33 shots fired, 23 confirmed kills, numerous tactical disruptions. But raw numbers didn't capture full impact. Japanese assault, planned for weeks, staged with significant forces, intended to break through American perimeter at weakest point, had been stopped by 6 Marines with modified rifle scopes made from soda cans and scrap canvas. Evening of November 18th, after 72 continuous hours with minimal sleep, Reed returned to command post. Webb was compiling casualty reports, trying to make sense of why major Japanese assault had failed so completely. Corporal Reed, battalion wants full accounting of sniper activities past 3 days. How many confirmed kills? Reed thought carefully. He'd kept meticulous notes. 23 confirmed, sir. Another 8 probables I couldn't observe impact on due to vegetation. Webb leaned back. Other 5 snipers combined have 21 confirmed during same period. You understand what that means? That I've been fortunate in position selection, sir. That's one interpretation. Webb pulled out folder.
I've been reading after-action reports from captured Japanese documents our intelligence translated. Enemy commanders were reporting to superiors that southern approach was covered by Death Sniper, who could shoot in any weather conditions and seemed able to see through rain and fog. They thought you were using some kind of advanced optical technology. Reed almost smiled. A soda can, sir. A soda can that changed outcome of 3-day battle. Webb stood, extended hand. Well done, Corporal. Get some rest. I'm rotating you offline 48 hours. You've earned it. But even as Reed left, even as he found his shelter and collapsed into first real sleep in 3 days, the story of his improvised modification was already spreading through 3rd Marine Division. Soda can scope trick, simple field expedient that solved problem Marine procurement officers and optical engineers hadn't addressed. Word reached other sniper teams, then reconnaissance units, then regular infantry companies. Within 2 weeks of November 18th, every sniper in 3rd Marine Division had modified scopes using Reed's technique. Required no special tools, no technical expertise beyond basic fieldcraft, no materials not already available in rations and supply. Soda cans became valuable currency. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, generic orange sodas. Men who'd previously discarded cans now saved them, traded them, hoarded them like precious metal. Technical Services Battalion got involved in December 1943. After Webb forwarded detailed report about modification's effectiveness, engineers studied improvised design, conducted tests, confirmed what Reed discovered through necessity. Dead airspace created by aluminium sleeve disrupted thermal gradient causing condensation. Extended hood prevented direct rain contact with lens. Crude but thermodynamically sound. By February 1944, Technical Services developed official specification. Molded rubber instead of aluminum. Adjustment rings for different scope diameters. Official designation. Cover, telescopic sight, M1944. Bureaucratic name erasing any connection to its origins as field expedient born from Montana logger's son and discarded soda can. Official version was better engineered, more durable, fit wider range of optics. But it arrived 6 months after Reed's improvised version had already solved the problem. But something else happened in February 1944 that Reed wouldn't learn about for decades. A team of evaluators from Aberdeen Proving Ground arrived at Marine positions in Pacific, ostensibly to assess field modifications and recommend improvements to standard equipment. They interviewed snipers, examined modified scopes, took detailed notes and photographs. Webb briefed them on soda can modification, showed Reed's original prototype, explained how it had been developed and spread. This was invented by Corporal Thomas Reed, Webb said clearly. November 1943 on Bougainville. Fabricated from materials at hand to solve critical operational problem. Lead evaluator, Major named Harrison, nodded, wrote in notebook. Impressive field expedients, Harrison said. We'll include this in our report. The report, filed in March 1944, read differently. Aberdeen Evaluation Team identified significant moisture-related failures in M73B 1 telescopic sites deployed in tropical environments. Team developed protective sleeve modification using readily available materials. Recommend immediate integration into doctrine. Thomas Reed's name appeared nowhere in document. Webb's name appeared nowhere. Innovation was credited to Aberdeen Technical Evaluators, who had identified problem and developed solution. When official, cover, telescopic sight, M1944, was later produced, specification sheet listed Aberdeen Proving Ground as designer. Reed learned about this in roundabout way. April 1944, Ordnance Officer arrived with crate of new official scope covers, rubber instead of aluminum, adjustable rings, professionally manufactured. Here are the new Aberdeen-designed scope guards, Officer said. Should work better than those improvised field jobs you boys have been using. Reed said nothing, just accepted equipment. That evening, he showed one official cover to Elliot. Aberdeen designed, Elliot said, reading label. He looked at Reed. That's your design.
Doesn't matter who gets credit, matters that it works, matters that it saves lives.
But Elliot could see something in Reed's eyes. Flash of hurt, quickly buried. It matters, Elliot said. You should say something. Reed shook his head. I'm a corporal. They're Aberdeen. Who's going to believe me? And even if they did, what changes? Modification exists. It's helping Marines. That's what I wanted. He went back to cleaning rifle. But the injustice sat there, unspoken but real. System had taken his innovation, erased his name, given credit to engineers who'd merely studied what 19-year-old had built in darkness with can opener and desperation. It was theft, institutional and complete, and there was nothing he could do about it. The modification spread beyond 3rd Marine Division. Snipers from other units heard about it, tried it, adopted it. By mid-1944, Marine and Army snipers throughout Pacific Theater were using variations of Reed's design.
Japanese intelligence eventually noticed.
Reports translated after war revealed Japanese observers had documented American snipers using cylindrical lens shields fabricated in field. One report from Japanese officer on Peleliu in September 1944. American marksmanship significantly enhanced by weather-resistant optical modifications of unclear origin, recommend similar development for Type 97 sniper rifles. Thomas Reed remained with 3rd Marine Division through Guam and Iwo Jima, accumulating combat record that included 67 confirmed kills by war's end, number that would have been much lower without those 72 hours on Bougainville, when improvised modification kept him operational. Promoted to sergeant in March 1944, served as sniper instructor at Guadalcanal, teaching new Marines fieldcraft he'd learned in Montana mountains and perfected in Solomon Islands jungles. His classes always included session on improvised equipment modifications.
Always brought modified rifle with soda can sleeve still attached.
Don't wait for supply to solve your problems. You're Marines. You adapt. You overcome. You win with what you've got. Sometimes that's $1 million rifle. Sometimes that's $1 million rifle in 10-cent soda can. Doesn't matter which, as long as you hit what you're aiming at. After war, Reed returned to Timber Ridge, Montana. Didn't talk much about service. Most veterans of his generation didn't. Quietness to that generation. Reluctance to make themselves center of attention. He worked in his father's sawmill, eventually taking it over when William retired in 1956. Married Sarah Hutchkins in 1947. Had 3 children. Lived quiet life in mountains where he'd learned to shoot as boy. War became something he carried privately. In dreams, sometimes. In way he'd pause when he heard certain sounds. In reluctance to waste anything that could be repaired. But didn't speak of it at dinners or community gatherings. Didn't wear medals. Didn't join veteran organizations. He'd done his part. That was enough. 1982. Military historian researching Pacific Theater sniper operations tracked Reed down through Marine Corps records. Dr. Robert Keegan from Army War College had been investigating origins of M1944 scope cover. Official records credited Aberdeen Proving Ground, but Keegan found something strange. In archived field reports from Bougainville, multiple references to improvised scope modifications appeared in November 1943. Months before Aberdeen's evaluation team had even arrived in theatre, someone had invented this modification before Aberdeen claimed credit. Keegan tracked down former 3rd Marine Division members, eventually found Elliot Branson living in Sacramento. Elliot told him everything. Fogged scopes, Reed's midnight fabrication, spread through division, Aberdeen's theft of credit. You need to talk to Tom Reed, Elliot said. He's in Montana, still running his father's sawmill. Interview took place in Reed's workshop, surrounded by tools and sawdust and smell of fresh timber. Keegan explained what he'd discovered. Discrepancy in dates, missing attribution, institutional appropriation of field innovation. Official record is wrong, Keegan said. You invented this modification November 1943. Aberdeen didn't arrive until February 1944. They studied your design and claimed it as their own. That's academic fraud, military fraud. Reed listened quietly. Face showed little emotion. I'm writing study on field innovations, Keegan continued. I want to set records straight, give you proper credit, make sure history knows truth. Reed considered this long moment. Will it help any Marines? He finally asked. I'm sorry? Your study, your corrections to record, will it help any Marines fighting right now? Keegan hesitated. Well, no, not directly. But it's about historical truth, about recognition.
Reed nodded slowly. Then it doesn't matter much, does it?
It matters that your contribution is acknowledged. Dr. Keegan, Reed's voice gentle but firm, I didn't make that modification for acknowledgement. I made it because my brothers were dying, and I couldn't see to protect them. Modification worked. It spread. It saved lives. That's what I wanted. Only thing I wanted. But Aberdeen stole your innovation, took credit for your work. Maybe they did. But Marines still got better equipment. That's what matters. Keegan looked frustrated. You don't want justice? Reed smiled, small, tired smile. I got justice, Dr. Keegan. I got 67 of my brothers home alive, who might not have made it otherwise. I got to come home myself. I got to marry Sarah and have 3 children and work with my hands in place I love. That's justice enough. But Keegan published his study anyway. Expedient Solutions, Field Modifications in the Pacific War, appeared in 1985.
Chapter 7, titled The Soda Can Modification, a case study in institutional appropriation. It laid out timeline, evidence, truth. Corporal Thomas Reed invented scope guard modification November 14, 1943. Not Aberdeen Proving Ground. Official record was incorrect. History had been rewritten to favor institutional authority over individual innovation. Study had limited circulation, mostly military colleges and specialized libraries. But it preserved truth for those who cared to look. And when Reed died in 2001, Keegan included copy of Chapter 7 in his condolence letter to family. Your husband changed the war, Keegan wrote. Aberdeen tried to erase him from history. I made sure they failed. Truth is on record now, forever. June 7, 2001. Thomas Reed died at age 79. Funeral was small, held at Methodist Church in Timber Ridge. Family attended, few friends from Sawmill and community, and 4 old men whose families nobody recognized. After service, they introduced themselves to Reed's widow and children. They were snipers, men whose lives had been saved by scope guard modification, who'd read Reed's obituary and veteran newsletter, who'd driven hundreds of miles to pay respects, to make sure family knew. One of them, man named Harrison from Oregon, spoke for all. Your husband saved my life in 1944. I was on Guam. My scope fogged during engagement. I remembered soda can modification, made one that night. Next day it worked perfectly. Let me engage targets I couldn't have seen otherwise. I made it home because of what he figured out in dark on Bougainville. Sarah Reed, 80 years old and crying quietly, took Harrison's hand. He never talked about it, never said anything. No, ma'am. Men like your husband didn't. But we remember. We wanted you to know. Sarah read aloud from Dr. Keegan's Chapter 7 during eulogy, her voice breaking. The 4 old men listened and understood. Harrison spoke afterward. We always knew. Every sniper who used that modification in field knew it came from one of us, not from some engineer in Maryland. We knew truth, even when records lied. That was Reed's real legacy, not official documents, not museum placard, but memory carried by men whose lives had been saved. They knew, and they never forgot. Today, National Museum of Marine Corps in Quantico houses over 10,000 artifacts. In World War II Pacific Gallery, among medals and uniforms and weapons, sits Springfield M1903A4 sniper rifle. Mounted on its scope is corroded aluminum cylinder covered in faded canvas. Parachute cord wound in spiral pattern. Placard reads,
M1903A4 sniper rifle with field expedient scope guard used by Sergeant Thomas Reed, 3rd Marine Division, Bougainville, 1943. Improvised modification, fabricated from discarded ration can, solved critical moisture problems affecting optical sights in tropical environments. After Dr.
Keegan's study and family's advocacy, the museum finally added Reed's name. Small victory, but truth at last. 30,000 visitors pass this exhibit every year. Most walk by without stopping, but occasionally veteran will pause, lean close, study crude aluminum and canvas sleeve, and smile with recognition. They know. They've been there. They've made it work with what they had. The old man from opening of this story stands in that gallery one last time in 2025. He is 76, same age his grandfather was when Thomas Reed died. He reaches into pocket, pulls out faded photograph, his grandfather in Marine uniform, young, serious, holding rifle with something strange wrapped around scope. Museum volunteer has moved on, but old man stays, looking at rifle in case, looking at photograph in hand, remembering stories his grandfather told him in workshop, stories about jungle, about necessity, about solving problems with what you have available. It's not about the soda can, his grandfather had said near end. It's about moment when everything you've been taught doesn't work anymore, when equipment fails, when plan falls apart, and you have to decide whether to accept failure or create solution from nothing. Old man places hand on glass. Behind it, rifle waits, silent, holding its story. Story about 19-year-old from Montana who refused to watch his brothers die because equipment didn't work, who spent 40 minutes in darkness building something never built before, who changed war with 10-cent piece of aluminum and willingness to try. Soda can modifications saved dozens of lives, changed tactical doctrine, spread across entire theatre of war. Aberdeen tried to steal credit, but truth survived. In Dr. Keegan's study, in museum placard now bearing Reed's name, in memory of 4 old men at funeral, in stories passed down through generations. Thomas Reed solved problem, that's all, just logger's son from Montana doing his part, with soda can and some string and refusal to accept that way things were was way they had to be. That's real legacy. Not medal he won, not kills he recorded, not even official modification that finally bore trace of his name, but principle that sometimes most important tool isn't in equipment bag or training manual. Sometimes it's in your head, waiting for moment when you need it badly enough to use it.